Welcome to the KO Kitchen. Today we are talking all things Trahana. What is Trahana? Well, I'm hoping to demystify Trahana for you today. Trahana can either be made with kibbled wheat or with regular flour. When you make Trahana from kibbled wheat, it has an irregular granular texture. When you make Trahana from regular flour, it has a more uniform shape and texture, and it's a little bit more pasta-like. Today we are going to focus on Trahana made from kibbled wheat. What is kibbled wheat? Well, this is whole wheat. Beautiful whole wheat grains. When you grind these down, whether you do a fine grind, a medium grind, or a coarse grind, you end up with this. This is a finer grind. And when you've ground it down, this gets a new name. It's called kibbled wheat. So no mystery anymore. Ground whole wheat is kibbled wheat. What you do with this kibbled wheat will then determine whether you make Burghul, Sweet Trahana, or Sour Trahana. In order to make Burghul, you take the kibbled wheat and you boil it in water. You form a porridge, which you allow to cool down. You then break that porridge down into chunks, which you lay out on a tablecloth on a table in the hot, dry sun. You let that dry out for a day or two, and then you take the chunks and you break them down into smaller fragments. And you can do that with a food processor or manually with a special sieve. You then take those smaller fragments and dry those out in the sun. And once they are completely dry, you put them in a jar, store them away for later use. And the Burghul looks like this. Okay, in order to make Sweet Trahana, you follow exactly the same process as the Burghul, but rather than using water to boil the kibbled wheat in, you use milk. So you take your milk, you heat it up, you add your kibbled wheat, you form the porridge, you break it into chunks, you lay it out and dry it out, break it down further into smaller fragments, dry those out, and you end up with something like this. Okay. And that is Sweet Trahana. In order to make the Sour Trahana, you take your kibbled wheat and you boil it in either fermented sheep's milk or yogurt, or fermented goat's milk or yogurt, or a combination of these. You heat up your milk or your yogurt, and your yogurt liquefies when you heat it up. You add your kibbled wheat, you form a porridge, it cools down, and then you can either do the breaking into chunks process and drying it out and back into fragments and drying it out. Or, as the Cypriots do, you can actually form it into shapes, either logs or actually these types of ovoid shapes. Traditionally, these are then laid out in the hot, dry sun for 4 to 5 days to make sure that they really, really dry out. They are then taken and they are stored away for later usage. In modern times and in places where the weather isn't consistently hot, a bit like Melbourne, people actually freeze them, which is another option. Eleni Georges from My Family's Food Diary and I actually have a little video for you where we take you step by step through the process of making sour Cypriot Trahana. Eleni then goes on to show us how to make the sour Trahana soup of Cyprus, which is a beautiful, creamy, comforting soup with that lovely souriness from the Trahana. Why do we make Trahana? Well, the reasons are historical. In days gone by, there was less access to fresh produce during the winter season, and so Trahana would be made and used as a source of nutrition during the winter months. Trahana is made from essentially whole wheat, so it has protein, complex carbohydrates, fiber, vitamins and minerals, and so it's a very nutritionally dense food. In addition, there would also be an abundance of milk during the summer, and that would need to be preserved in a way at a time when there was no refrigeration. So the milk and the yogurt was used to make the Trahana in a way to also preserve those, and in doing so, it actually makes the Trahana even more nutritionally complex and dense and very, very satiating when you eat it. We continue on at this time to make it because it's actually delicious. So there you have it. When do we use Trahana? Well, we can use Trahana in our soups, in our stews, in a basic porridge, in a bake with meat as a Orexi in the oven. I also use it for my spanakopita and my paspallara to help absorb some of the moisture that's released from the greens during the baking phase. So lots of different uses, and I'm sure you can think of more. Today we are going to be making sweet trahana. So come along with me and let me show you how to do it. Let's go. So while the milk is heating up and we've got to get to the point of boiling, let me chat to you about how to get the wheat kibbled or ground. You can either buy it ground from specialty delis, or if you've got a Thermomix or maybe an industrial coffee grinder, you can grind it yourself as well. Or if you're local to Oakley, you can also go to the Squirrel's Den and purchase your whole wheat there, and they can actually even grind it for you. So there are a few options. How gorgeous is today's weather, the perfect weather for trahana making. When you do make trahana, make sure you look at the weather forecast and check to see if you've got 4 to 5 days of consistently warm, dry weather. You want it to be sunny and you want the temperature to be in the upper 20s, low 30s to make sure that your trahana gets a good chance to dry out. So today is actually day 3 of trahana making. Day 1, we boiled the kibbled wheat in the milk. We made the porridge, we then let it cool down, we broke it down into small pieces and laid it out on this table and covered it with this fine mesh. Day 2, I just left it out in the sun to dry out all day. I do take it in overnight because I'm not sure if the possums or the rats might get to it, so make sure you take care of it at night. And today is day 3. Today I'm actually going to collect it. It's definitely dried adequately. And I'm just going to collect it in my Thermomix bowl and grind it down. You can use a food processor as well, or you can actually do it manually. My mum used to have a aluminium baking pan with holes drilled into it, and she would actually collect the trahana and rub it against those holes, and the trahana would break down into smaller fragments. All right, let's do it. Almost like we're unveiling the trahana bride. Okay, we've got quite a bit of trahana, so we're actually going to grind it down in 2 batches. If you prefer chunkier trahana, you can actually just take it and pop it in a jar and store it away as it is. I prefer my trahana to be a little bit finer because I like adding it to pites, to my paspalhara, to help absorb moisture from the greens as those are baking. So let's go and break this down a bit further. Let's go. Off to do the second grind. All right, we've ground it down. We're just going to spread it out again across our tablecloth here, and we're going to let it dry for another 24 hours, and then it's ready to put into a jar and store away for later use. Okay, so today is day 4 of trahana making. Our finer grind of trahana has been drying for 24 hours and it's ready to put into a jar and store away for later use. So let's do that. There's my friend the wasp. Okay. Okay, be aware. This process does attract wasps, but it's okay. All right, darling, you can go now. Bye. Okay, and there you have it. We have made sweet trahana from scratch. I hope you enjoyed watching the process, and I hope this helped to demystify all things trahana for you. And I also hope that you get to use your trahana when you make some KO recipes. I wish you kali petihia in making trahana. Let me know how you go. Send me an email, tag me in your social media posts. But I would love to hear from you. Okay, all the best. Cheers.